Hi, I'm Lorella. This is Plan B Orchard and Farm. 6 years ago, I moved my family from the suburbs of Los Angeles to rural Missouri. We wanted to lead a more sustainable lifestyle and have closer ties to our food and our land. We are 6 years in, and I wanted to give you a full homestead tour, show you what we've accomplished in just a few short years. This is one of our 2 flocks of free-range chickens. Right now we have about 60 chickens, and I sell eggs. It's one of my primary farm businesses. We have an orchard, and right now we have 5 peach trees, 3 apple trees, 1 pear tree, and then we have 2 more pear trees that we've ordered. We aren't harvesting fruit yet, and that's one of the things that I would do differently next time, or that I would advise people to do, is to buy their fruit trees early on in their homesteading journey. We have 5 beehives in our apiary, and last year was the first year that we sold honey. And I just went on Facebook on my personal page and I just posted that I had honey for sale. I chose a mid-price just by comparing what other people were selling theirs for. And within 2 hours, every bit of honey that I had bottled was sold out. It's another lucrative business here on the farm. A lot of people don't understand how I can have the beehives so close to the house. But really, the bees are super gentle. I mean, I'm here, maybe 18 inches from this hive, and they're just ignoring me. Really, bees are not going to come after you to harm you unless you're doing something that they see as a threat to the colony. Before I got into beekeeping, I didn't realize how beautiful it is, what magnificent engineering the bees have. It's just an amazing thing. And if you don't know a lot about bees or beekeeping, feel free to ask me any questions in the comment area. It's amazing. I love beekeeping. It's probably one of my favorite part of homesteading. We really enjoy beekeeping, and what was really valuable to us was attending our local bee club. It was actually over an hour drive for us, but it was well worth it. They have monthly meetings where they have different topics that they talk about, and they have a speaker come in, and they usually had breakout sessions for beginning beekeepers. In our first year, we attended a beginner's class for 4 weeks. The cost of that class included a beekeeping book, the 4 weeks of lessons, access to mentors, going on field days later in the year where we actually got to work hives with experienced beekeepers, and a year's membership in the bee club. So it was 100% worth every penny spent. And it really made me more confident when I work with the bees. But even before we had any bees on the farm, we knew what an important part of farm ecology bees are, how important it would be for our orchard and gardens. And so we actually named our farm with the word bee in it. It's Plan B Orchard and Farm, in part because we never planned to leave the city. So this is 100% the Plan B for our life, but also because we planned to have bees on the farm. So kind of a play on words there. They're all coming home. They're like, who is this person sitting by the hive? These are our 4 feeder pigs that we are raising to butcher. When we take these guys and the beef to butcher, after that, 100% of the meat we eat will have been raised on this farm between rabbit, turkey, beef, and pork. So it's pretty amazing. But it can be a little bit daunting when you think of the expense of it. One way that we counter that expense is by raising extra. So you can see here we've got 4 feeder pigs. We're going to butcher or have butchered 2 for our own freezer, and the other 2 will be sold. Also, our beef, we're going to keep half a beef for our freezer, and we're going to sell half a beef. That helps offset the cost of buying the animals, of feeding the animals, of paying the butcher fees. So it really comes out cost effective. When you think about buying a half a beef from somebody or buying a pig, and then paying the butcher fees, it's kind of daunting to come up with that much money all at once. But when you price it out, the per pound price makes it a really sweet deal. And if you can raise your own and sell some, then you can get your animals, your freezer filled for really pennies. It has worked out really economically for us. In addition to the economic benefits, we know how these guys were raised. We know they're raised on pasture. We know what kind of feed they're getting. We know they live in happy, healthy conditions. They're not on a packed feedlot in dirt, fighting a bunch of other pigs or fighting other cows to get to their food. They've got lots of fresh graze and they're happy and healthy animals. That pen the pigs are in may look pretty small, but I have this big grassy area here, and I actually move that pen a half a length every 3 to 4 days. And I want to show you something kind of neat, because in the areas where they've already been and the grass is coming back up, something else is coming up with it. I feed these pigs melons and pumpkins and squashes, especially the pumpkins because they're a natural dewormer for pigs. And so where they have excreted seeds, we have squash and melon plants coming up here in the pig field. Once these guys get a little bigger, we're going to train them to hot wire, and then they're going to be able to eat the food that they planted themselves. These are beef cattle, and the 3 light tan ones are Charolais. They're all female, so we have 2 cows and a heifer. And there our breeding stock. And then the guy standing right there looking at us with the orange ear tag, he's our beef steer that we bought. And we actually have a butcher date for him in February. January or February. The other 2 black calves up there are my mom's. As the price of beef goes up in the stores, what? You're getting out of my camera sight on purpose? Are you doing that on purpose? The meat processing facilities are full up with their schedule, and so we were not able to get a butcher date until January. What are you doing, bud? What are you doing? Rabbits are one of our main meat supplies on our homestead. In addition to grain and grass, our rabbits are also fed vegetable extras from the garden. I have 3 breeding does and a buck, and the rest we grow out either to sell or to process it and eat. They're easier to process than chickens, and they taste really yummy. One thing you may not realize about living on a homestead until you live on a homestead is that there are always projects going on. So one of those projects that we have been working on recently is building a new chicken tractor so we can move our newest flock out of my mom's chicken coop and into a mobile coop, which will follow the cows in the pasture. And right now we're calling it the duffel pod. Please leave a comment if you know why we're naming it that. And I was really worried about how heavy it is, because as we're building it, it's just incredibly heavy, maybe 300 pounds, 500 pounds, I don't know. It's just lots and lots of wood in it. It's not done yet, still needs the roof on, but watch this. I was surprised. Chris told me what a difference wheels would make, but I was really surprised. Light as a feather. Here's Chris taking it for a test drive to make sure whether we need to do any adapting to it before we add the roof. Having the coop behind the cows helps spread the fertilizer, the cow manure, around. They'll also eat fly larvae out of the cow manure, and it will reduce your fly population on your farm. They scratch around in the dirt, they kind of naturally till it a little bit. So our cows are on a rotational grazing system. We have 6 pastures that we move them through, 6 paddocks. And so when they move from one into the next one, we'll put the chickens in the one they came out of. And so we'll kind of rotate them through that way. With the way things were going in the world recently, Chris and I decided to sit down and take an inventory of how well prepared we were for any kind of an emergency that might happen or prolonged event. What if a tornado took out some of the power poles and we were without power for a lot of time or something like that? And one of the things that we discovered was our well pump works on electricity, and we did not have a good backup source for water. So we talked about how to pump stuff from the creek, how would we filter it, all of that. And what we finally came up with, well, what Chris came up with, was this hand pump solution. We tried to film it all. It was drizzly, it was cold, it was miserable, and our camera batteries died, but I'll show you what we've got. This is the first year where I felt like I've had this amount of success in the garden and that I've grown this amount of variety of veg in the garden. I'm really proud of all the hard work I've put in. Now remember, I've been gardening for about 8 years and doing it on this farm for 6, and it did not look anything like this in the beginning. For sure. I now have a 25-foot by 75-foot garden, and it's absolutely magical. In these 6 beds, I have cauliflower, lettuce, kale, onions, lettuce, spinach, Swiss chard, carrots and beets, carrots and radishes, onions and broccoli, zucchini, strawberries, and black-eyed peas. On the trellis underneath the sheets, I have kale, peas, and cucumbers. The sheets are to provide afternoon shade for the peas. In this section of the garden, I have 2 pole bean teepees. I have Big Mac's pumpkins, butternut squash, green bell peppers along this near trellis. I have a comfrey. I have lemon squash. I have a row of 4 zucchini and 4 yellow squash. I have a bunch of tomato plants, and I have red and yellow bell peppers as well. In this back third of the garden, I have cushaw squash. I have Big Mac's pumpkins, jack-o'-lantern pumpkins, more pole bean teepees. I also have a bunch of arch trellises where I've got watermelon, tomatoes, cucumbers, cantaloupe, just all sorts of stuff growing back there. So I'm really looking forward to when all of this grows up a little bit bigger and starts filling in. I'm super pleased with the way it is right now, but I can't wait to see it. I'm really proud of the hard work I've put into the garden this year. I can't wait to see it as it grows up and fills in. It's super exciting. Thanks so much for hanging out with me on this homestead tour. I would love to hear your thoughts and comments. I'll see you guys next week.